The ship landed like a quiet star. Snow lifted in soft waves as its legs touched the frozen ground. Warm light spilled into the broken ice cave, melting what remained of the blood, the fear, the war. Inside the cave, she stood still. The alien mother held her child, wrapped in cloth stitched with human thread, the same cloth she once burned. Now repaired by the hands of a stranger. Sergeant Miller leaned against the wall. His wounds were bandaged. His face was pale, but his eyes were calm. They had survived. Together. The rescue team entered the cave. 5 humans in white suits. Voices low. Movements slow, respectful. They looked at the alien mother. At the baby in her arms. At Miller. None of them asked who she was. They had seen the beacon's message. They already knew. This wasn't just about survival. It was about something bigger. Something sacred. Later, in the ship's med bay, Miller sat on a bed near the window. The stars outside blinked like distant candles. The mother sat across from him, rocking the child. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The silence was full of answers. One of the crew brought food. Human food. Bread. Soup. Water. The mother looked unsure. Then Miller smiled and broke a piece of bread. He dipped it in the soup and took a bite. She watched. Waited. Then did the same. Her child reached for the water with tiny fingers. The humans watched from a distance. No orders. No questions. Only respect. Days passed. The mother and child were given a small room in the ship. Soft bed, warm light, clean clothes. Nothing fancy, but everything she had lost. One night, she walked to the viewing deck, the baby sleeping against her chest. Stars filled the glass wall. Endless space. Endless silence. She stared. And slowly, tears slid down her cheeks, but not from pain. From peace. Miller walked in behind her, limping slightly. He stood beside her, holding 2 cups of tea. She looked at him. Took one. No words, but her eyes said it. I didn't know your world, but now I don't want to leave it. When the ship reached the central human station, the officials came. They asked Miller what to do. Was she dangerous? Was the child a threat? He looked at them. And said 4 words. They're coming home with me. No one argued. A small house near the forest was given to them. Old, quiet, safe. The child grew fast. He laughed often. He ran without fear. His mother still watched the sky every night, but no longer with sadness. Just wonder. And sometimes, Miller would sit by the fire, staring at the child playing on the floor. He'd smile to himself and whisper, "You saved him. And somehow you saved me too." Final scene. The child ran into the snow, laughing, glowing slightly as he played. His mother watched from the porch. Miller stood beside her, holding 2 cups of tea. They said nothing, but the moment spoke everything. A child once nearly lost in ice. A mother who gave everything. A human who simply showed up. And a home that never stopped growing. The storm outside had stopped. For the first time in days, there was silence, not peace. Just silence. Inside the outpost, the air was thick. The floor still carried dark stains. The 3 dead creatures were gone, burned in the furnace. But their smell, their weight, still filled the space. Sergeant Miller stood by the window, staring at the snow. He had not slept. Behind him, the alien mother sat with her child in her lap. Her wounds had closed. Her breath was calm. But her eyes were somewhere else. Like they were looking through the walls. She stood up suddenly. She walked to the exit door. Miller turned. "Where are you going?" he asked. She looked at him. Then pointed at the child, then at the snow, then placed her hand on the floor. Miller frowned. "Something under the ground?" She nodded. Then walked to the screen and pressed a shaking finger on a section of the map. A place beyond the base. A place marked long ago by humans as no signal zone. No life, no energy. Just dead ice. At least, that's what they thought. 10 minutes later, they were outside. Miller carried a heating unit on his back. The mother carried the child in her arms. The snow crunched softly under their boots. For 2 hours, they walked. No words, just wind. Then they reached it. A cliff of ice stood like a wall before them. Pure, white, untouched. The mother stepped forward. She placed her hand on it, closed her eyes, and whispered a word Miller couldn't hear. The ice began to glow, faintly blue. Then crack. Miller stepped back as the wall opened, like a door melting. Inward. Inside was light. They walked into the frozen cave. The walls shimmered with ancient symbols. Glowing lines danced along the ice like veins. It was not human. It was hers. She walked like she knew the way. Like she had been here before. Maybe she had. Miller whispered, "What is this place?" She stopped at a round chamber and turned to him. She took the child and gently placed him in the center of the floor, on a glowing symbol. Suddenly, the room lit up. Images appeared in the air, like ghosts made of light. A planet, green and blue. Her planet, then fire, war, monsters. Then a single baby, her baby, and then something strange. The baby's body glowing just like the walls. Miller stepped back. Stunned. He looked at her. "You're not just hiding him," he said. "You're protecting something inside him." She nodded. Then pointed to her chest. Then to the child. Then to the sky. Miller's voice was soft. "He's special?" She said nothing. She didn't have to. The light changed again. A new image. A ship. Not human, not hers. Dark, sharp, full of claws. The same kind of ship the creatures must have come from. Then, an old message, spoken in her voice. A recording. A warning. If they find him, they will take everything. He carries what they fear, and what they want. The ice shook slightly. Miller looked around. "They're coming again, aren't they?" She looked at him. Nodded once, but then pointed to a device in the corner, small, round, hidden in the wall. Miller walked over, cleaned the ice from it. It was a beacon. Old alien tech. Waiting for one command. Colon, send. Miller turned to her. "This can call for help?" She looked at her child, then back at him. Then placed her hand on the beacon. The symbols glowed. The message began to send. Far above, in deep space. A light blinked on in an old satellite. Somewhere, someone had just received a signal that hadn't been heard in generations. Back on the planet, Miller checked his weapon. He looked at the child. At the mother. At the ice chamber around them. "You're not alone anymore," he said. Outside, the snow began to fall again. But this time, it wasn't hiding death. It was hiding a war waiting to rise. Asterisk, the beacon was glowing. Its pulse blinked. Like a heartbeat in the ice, slow, steady, reaching up into the stars. It had taken years to charge, centuries to sleep, seconds to wake. And now, it was calling. But calling what? Sergeant Miller stared at the signal. His heart was racing. He didn't know if anyone was out there. He didn't know if help would come. He only knew one thing. They had no time. Outside the ice cave, the snow had gone silent again, not from peace, but from something approaching. The ground vibrated with quiet footsteps. Not small ones, many. Miller checked his scanner. 7. No, 10, no, 12. The creatures had returned, but this time, they weren't just hunting. They were closing in. Inside the cave, the alien mother held her child tight. Her eyes were locked on the entrance. She wasn't scared anymore. She was ready. Her son was still glowing faintly. Whatever lived inside him, energy, memory, something unknown, it had awakened the beacon, and now it was attracting everything nearby, including death. Miller pulled out a small data stick. He looked at the beacon. "If we die, this can't," he said, mostly to himself. He inserted the stick. The beacon copied its last message. He handed it to her. She looked at it. Then him, she understood. He was saying, "If I fall, you run. She shook her head, but he placed the stick in her hand anyway. "Hope lives in him," he said softly. "Don't let them take it." Then the ice cracked. The wall exploded. Snow and shards flew through the air. The first creature dropped in tall. Black, spider-like. Two more followed. Then three. The alien mother stepped in front of her child. Fired first. Bang, bang, bang. 3 shots, 1 hit. 2 missed. He reloaded fast. She screamed, a sound that echoed like thunder in the cave, and charged. Her blade flashed in the air, cutting across the nearest beast's leg. It fell but didn't stop. She rolled, stabbed, spun. But they kept coming. Miller threw a grenade. It flashed bright, blinding the room. Smoke, heat, screams, blood hit the floor. One creature fell. But then Miller was struck. A claw cut across his side. He gasped, dropped to one knee. The mother turned, eyes wide. Another beast came at him, fast. She didn't think. She leapt. Her body slammed into the creature, knocking it into the wall. She screamed again, not from pain, from fury. The child was crying now, glowing brighter than ever. The sound echoed, strange and deep. The creatures paused. Something about the cry scared them. One stepped back, then another, but 2 more pushed forward. Miller stood again, barely. Blood on his shirt. Breathing hard. The mother was bleeding too, but still on her feet. They looked at each other. 1 second, that was all. And it said everything. If we fall, we fall together. Suddenly, a flash of white light filled the cave. A sound came with it, like a storm breaking the sky. The creatures froze, then turned and ran. All of them, gone, into the snow. Silence. Then a voice, metallic, clear. "This is the U.E.'s Valiant. Responding to distress signal. Are there survivors?" Miller dropped to the ground, laughing and coughing. He pressed his radio. Yes, we're here." The alien mother stood still, staring at the sky as the clouds opened. Above them, a ship was landing. Big, bright, human. Safe. She held her child tight. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled. Asterisk. The room was too quiet. Sergeant Miller stood with his hands up, still. The alien mother stood across the room, weak, trembling, but ready to fight. Her long fingers were curved like claws. Her breathing was fast. Her eyes wide, but she did not step back. Her child lay inside the care pod, glowing soft blue, safe, sleeping. Miller didn't move. He kept his voice low. "You're safe. No harm. I helped." The alien mother didn't understand the words, but she stared at his eyes. There was no fear in them, no anger. Just calm. Her eyes flicked to the pod, then back to him. Then, slowly, she lowered her hands, just a little. She sat down on the floor. Her legs shook. Her body had deep burns. Her skin was cracked from cold. Her bones hurt, but she was alive. Miller placed a cup of warm liquid on the floor between them. Then he stepped back. The alien looked at it. She smelled it first, then touched it with one finger. Warm, harmless. She drank. Miller smiled slightly. "That's called tea," he said. "It's not food, but it helps." The alien looked at him. Her face was still hard, unsure, but the cup was empty. Later, she walked slowly to the glass pod where her child slept. She placed her palm on the glass. Her lips moved soft words in a language Miller didn't know. He didn't interrupt. He stood behind her, quiet. Then she turned. She touched her chest, closed her hand in a slow motion, then pointed to the child. Miller understood. "Mother," he said, pointing at her. Then at himself. "Miller, human." She blinked, repeated the motion, not the word. Just the hand. That was enough. Outside the outpost, the snow howled. But inside, something very old and rare was growing. Trust. Miller checked the sensors again. The shadow from before, it was still moving around the base. but slow, watching. He looked at her. She was asleep in a corner now, curled like a shield around nothing, her body still used to protecting their child, even in sleep. He watched her and whispered to himself, "You're not just a mother, you're a warrior." 3 hours later, the baby cried. Miller jumped up, but the mother was already awake, fast, alert. She rushed to the pod. The child's eyes opened, tiny, glowing. Alive. She picked him up and held him close. The cry stopped. Miller stood nearby, silent. Then, she turned, and she did something new. She stepped closer to him, very slowly. She opened her arms just a little, not offering a hug, but showing him the child. It was a gesture, a message without words. "You helped him." "I see you," Miller smiled gently. He nodded once. That's all he could give her, and that's all she needed. Just as that moment began to settle, boom, a deep sound echoed through the metal walls. The lights blinked. Warning lights flashed red. Alert, perimeter breach. Unknown force approaching. Miller's face turned serious. He looked at the screen. 4 life forms, not human. Moving fast. Outside, something walked on 6 legs. Tall, black, sharp. Not hunters. Not animals. Trackers. The alien mother's eyes went wide. She knew them. She stepped back, grabbed her child tighter. "No," she whispered in her own tongue. "Not again." Miller grabbed his weapon. He looked at her. "I don't know what those things are," he said, "but I'll stop them, I swear." She didn't understand his words, but his face, his body, said everything. And for the first time, she nodded. The wind outside changed. It no longer howled. It hunted. The metal walls of the outpost shook with each step of something large. Something heavy. Inside, red lights flashed. The warning voice spoke again. "Perimeter breach. 4 hostile life forms. Prepare for contact." Sergeant Miller stood at the weapons rack. His fingers moved fast. He loaded his rifle, grabbed a shock blade, checked power levels. He looked back at the alien mother. She was not running. She was not hiding. She was wrapping her child in cloth again, tighter, firmer, her hands no longer shaking. She had seen these monsters before, and she knew what they wanted, not her, the child, outside. Snow slammed against the camera lens. One of the creatures appeared, tall, 6-legged, skin like black glass, and eyes that glowed with red heat. It moved like a spider, but faster, smarter. Then another. Then another. They circled the outpost, tapping the walls with sharp claws, looking for a way in. Miller ran to the command panel. "Lock down all outer doors. Activate shock fences." "System damage," the computer replied. "Fences offline. East wall weak." "Too late." Crash. A part of the east wall tore open. Cold air exploded into the hallway, and through it came a scream. Not human, not animal, something hungry. Miller turned to the mother. "Stay here. Protect the baby." She looked him in the eyes and stepped forward. She handed him the child. He froze. She stepped past him and picked up the shock blade on the table. She had no armor, no boots, but her eyes, they were fire. She said one word in her language. It sounded like a whisper and a growl mixed together. Miller didn't know what it meant, but he felt it. It meant, "Let them try." In the hallway, the first creature entered. It crawled across the ceiling, then dropped down hard. Miller aimed. Bang. One shot to the chest. The creature screamed, but kept moving. The alien mother jumped forward, blade in hand. She moved fast. Faster than Miller thought possible. Her blade hit the side of the creature's neck. Sparks flew. The thing turned and slashed her shoulder. She didn't stop. She grabbed its jaw and screamed into its face, a sound full of rage and memory. Then stabbed it straight through the head. It dropped. Miller stood in shock. She turned to him, breathing hard. Blood on her arm. Another scream came from the hallway. Two more. This time, they came together. Miller stepped in front of the child. He raised his gun again. "You take the one on the left," he said. She didn't understand, but she smiled. They attacked at once. The fight was not clean. It was chaos. Claws against steel. Screams against silence. Blood, black and red, hit the walls. But in the end, they stood. She was cut. He was bruised. But they stood. Around them, the three bodies of the creatures twitched, then stilled. Fourth one had not entered. It had been watching. Learning. And now, it was gone. Miller looked at her. She held her side. Breathing heavy, he walked over and handed her the child again. "He's okay," he said softly. "You kept him safe." She held the child close. She said a word again, the same one from before. He still didn't know what it meant, but this time, she touched her chest when she said it, and then gently touched his arm. He understood. It meant, "Thank you." In the corner, the base scanner blinked. New signal. Different direction. Not a monster, but a message from space. Someone was listening. The sky was red. The wind was loud and sharp like knives. Snow did not fall softly here. It hit hard, like tiny stones. The planet was dead, frozen, quiet, and cruel. She walked slowly. Her legs were tired. Her feet were bare and blue. She did not have shoes. She did not have a coat. She had nothing left, only her child. The alien mother held her baby close to her chest. He was cold. He did not cry anymore. He was too weak. His small body shook in her arms. She could feel his breath. It was slow. Too slow. She had already burned one arm of her clothes, then the other. She had burned her scarf. She had nothing left to burn, but she could not stop. Her child needed warmth. The fire was small, and the wind tried to kill it. Still, she shielded it with her hands. Her skin turned red, then black. But she did not stop. Long ago, her people had lived here. This planet was once full of life and color. Now it was a grave. The war had ended everything. She was the last of her kind. And her baby was the last hope. But hope was weak in this cold. She looked up. Her eyes were large, glowing blue. She saw something far away, blinking lights, a structure. A human base? She didn't know if they would help. But she had no choice. She wrapped the child in a piece of burnt cloth and started walking again. Every step hurt. The ground cut her skin. Her bones felt like ice. But she walked. For him. 1 hour passed. Then 2. The child made a sound. A soft whimper that gave her strength. She smiled a little. "Almost there," she whispered in her language, but her legs failed. She fell. Her knees hit the snow. She tried to get up, but she could not. Her arms wrapped tighter on the child. She looked at the lights again. Then she closed her eyes. Far away, inside the human base, a man looked at a screen. Sergeant Miller. He was tall, with a rough beard and calm eyes. A soldier, but also a father once. "Strange signal detected," the computer said. "Small heat source, organic." Miller sat up. Nothing lived out there, not anymore. He zoomed in. The heat signal was faint, like a dying candle, and moving. Slowly, he grabbed his coat. "Open the gate," he told the system. "I'm going out." The wind hit him like a wall. But he kept walking, guided by the scanner in his hand. Every few minutes, the signal grew weaker. He moved faster. Then he saw something, a shape in the snow. He ran to it, a body. An alien, and in her arms, a baby. Miller fell to his knees. The alien mother was unconscious. Her skin was frostbitten. Her clothes were burned, barely covering her, but her arms still held the child tight. He gently touched the baby's face. Cold, so cold. Without a second thought, Miller took off his own jacket and wrapped it around them both. "Come on, don't give up now," he whispered. He clicked his Radio. This is Miller. I found them. Get the med bay ready. Inside the base, warm lights glowed. Machines beeped softly. The alien mother lay in a recovery bed. The baby was inside a heated pod safe, warm, breathing better. Miller watched them from the glass window. He didn't know who they were or where they came from. But he had seen something that shook him, a mother who gave everything. Burned. Her own clothes, her own skin. Just to keep her child alive. He had seen war. He had seen loss. But this was something else. Something pure. And now, the story had just begun. The outpost stood like a skeleton in the snow, cold, silent, and alone. It was made of gray metal and sharp lines, surrounded by tall ice walls. No birds flew here. No trees moved. Only the wind screamed out inside. A human sat by a screen that blinked slow green lights. Sergeant Miller was tired. His eyes were half closed. It had been 142 days since he had spoken to another human face to face. His job was simple. Watch, report, survive. Then something changed. The computer beeped. Just once. He opened his eyes. Heat signal detected. The machine sat in a flat. Voice. Miller leaned forward. What kind of signal? Organic. Fading. He stared at the screen. A tiny dot blinked red in a white desert. He narrowed his eyes. No life lives out there. Not anymore. But still. The dot was moving. Barely. 10 minutes later, Miller was outside. The storm hit him like a slap. His boots sank into the snow. His scanner shook in his hand. Come on, he muttered. Don't die on me yet. He followed the signal through ice hills and broken metal towers left behind from old wars. The scanner led him to a shape, small, dark, and still. His heart jumped. It was real. A body lay half buried in snow. Thin arms wrapped tight around a smaller form. He dropped to his knees and pulled off his gloves. He touched the larger figure, skin like ice. The face. Not human, but soft, gentle, alien. Then a sound, a weak cry. The child. He quickly unwrapped the bundle. The baby was shaking. Barely alive. Miller wrapped them both in his coat. You're okay. I got you, he whispered. The mother's hand twitched. Her fingers moved slowly, reaching for her child even in sleep. Miller stared. Even near death, she still held on. Back inside the outpost, red lights flashed. The medical unit beeped and hissed as warm steam covered the air. Miller placed the child inside a care pod. Soft blue light glowed. The baby breathed deeper. The mother was placed on a heated bed. Her burns were deep. Her skin cracked from the cold. Her pulse faint. But there. Miller stood by the window, watching. He couldn't speak. He couldn't think. He had seen people die in wars. He had seen brave soldiers fall. But this was something else. She had burned her clothes. She had walked, barefoot in fire snow. She had no language he could understand. But still, her actions screamed louder than any words. An hour later, the alien mother opened her eyes. Soft lights filled the room. She sat up slowly, breathing hard. Her eyes went straight to the pod. Her child. She gasped. Where was he? Then, she saw the human. Sergeant Miller stood near the pod. The baby slept inside, warm and safe. The mother's eyes went wide. Her body moved fast, weak but ready to fight. She didn't speak. She growled low, warning him. Miller raised both hands. Easy, he's okay, I helped. She didn't understand. He pointed to the child and said slowly, safe, warm, not hurt. She paused. She looked at her child. Then at him. She didn't lower her guard, but she didn't attack. Later. That night, Miller recorded a log. Day 143. Found an alien woman and child. No ID, no known species. She's protective, smart, scared, but not hostile. She burned her own clothes to keep the kid warm. She gave everything. I don't even know if she understands me. But I think she knows I'm not the enemy. He looked at the sleeping baby through the glass. She trusted me. For 1 second. That's enough for now. But then, the alarms rang. Beep, beep. Motion detected. Sector 6. Miller stood up fast. Looked at the camera feed. Dark shadows moved outside the base, and they were not human.